The chamber was lit evenly, almost sterile, when the rupture occurred. Microphones flickered on and off as a routine procedural exchange dissolved into something sharper, more dangerous. Mackenzie's voice rose without warning, measured at first, then edged with accusation. Head snapped upward. Hands froze mid-note. The air thickened as if pressure had dropped. Across the aisle, Ramaphosa remained seated, posture composed, but the stillness around him betrayed strain. Camera lenses tightened, capturing clenched jaws and eyes darting toward party whips. As McKenzie continued, papers trembled in nervous hands. Aides leaned in close, whispering urgently. The speaker's gavel struck, once, then again, swallowed by overlapping shouts. The chamber's order, long maintained by ritual and restraint, collapsed in seconds. Ramaphosa rose to respond, tone controlled yet visibly constrained, but the words failed to seal the breach. Accusations echoed back, sharper now, layered with insinuation. On the benches behind, phones lit up with messages. Screens flashed images of documents, file names partially visible, their significance immediately understood. Security shifted along the walls. The public gallery fell into stunned silence as the first MPs stood and turned away, doors slamming with finality. Walkouts multiplied, each exit amplifying the sense of irreversible momentum. What appeared chaotic began to reveal a pattern: timing, coordination, intent. This was not a spontaneous outburst. It was a confrontation designed to detonate in public view. As the noise crested and the speaker's authority evaporated, one realization settled heavily over the chamber: this moment had been waiting. And somewhere among the circulating files lay the reason it could no longer be contained. Beyond the chamber's doors, Parliament's quieter corridors erupted into a different kind of crisis. Secured rooms filled rapidly with senior figures, faces drawn tight under fluorescent lights. Voices dropped to whispers that carried unmistakable fury. Doors closed. Phones vibrated incessantly. The machinery of damage control engaged too late. Statements were drafted on tablets, edited mid-sentence, then discarded as new developments rendered them obsolete. Inside Ramaphosa's inner circle, tension sharpened into accusation. Advisors spoke over one another, debating whether to confront, concede, or delay. Each option carried visible risk. Across the complex, rival factions seized the vacuum, calling parallel meetings, issuing calculated leaks, positioning themselves as alternatives to a faltering center. The discipline that once enforced silence fractured under the weight of opportunity. International desks began to call. Requests for briefings arrived from embassies and foreign missions, their phrasing cautious but unmistakably urgent. Screens in media rooms replayed the parliamentary chaos on a loop, the images traveling faster than any official explanation. Analysts abroad questioned stability. Markets watched closely. The pressure mounted with every passing minute. Conflicting narratives emerged almost simultaneously. One version blamed provocation. Another suggested orchestration. None held long. Each collapse fed the next, exposing how unprepared the leadership had been for a confrontation unfolding in plain sight. The usual buffers, protocol, hierarchy, party unity, failed to hold. As tempers flared and trust eroded, a deeper fear surfaced in private exchanges. This crisis had not begun today. It had merely found its stage. And as night approached, it became clear that whatever Mackenzie had set in motion was already beyond recall. By evening, the confrontation had migrated from Parliament's floor to the realm of evidence. Journalists gathered in tight clusters, laptops open, voices low but urgent. Files began to circulate, first fragments, then fuller documents, shared discreetly, verified cautiously. Sources confirmed their origin, internal reports once restricted to closed committees, now exposed to public scrutiny. Each page carried weight. References to meetings, timelines, approvals. Margins marked with annotations that suggested selective silence rather than oversight. Inside Parliament, MPs reacted with visible shock. Some stared at the documents in disbelief. Others avoided eye contact entirely. Legal teams were summoned quietly, instructed to prepare for inquiries not yet announced. Public denials followed, measured and firm, but their tone betrayed defensiveness. Press statements emphasized procedure and context, yet failed to address the specifics spreading across screens. The battle shifted decisively, from rhetoric to proof. Authenticity was questioned. Motives were dissected. But the documents remained stubborn and precise. International analysts weighed in, noting the implications for governance and accountability. Diplomatic channels exchanged cautious messages, assessing risk. Within party ranks, mistrust deepened. Every leak suggested another, every revelation hinted at more withheld. Late that night, confirmation arrived through multiple sources. Additional files existed. Not summaries. Originals. Their scope, larger than anticipated, threatened to redraw the narrative entirely. As editors prepared headlines and lawyers prepared defenses, one certainty emerged: the exposure had only begun. And the next release could change everything. The following day, images of walkouts dominated screens nationwide. Slow-motion replays captured the symbolism with brutal clarity: backs turned, benches emptied, institutional order dissolving frame by frame. Outside Parliament, citizens gathered in clusters. Some stood silently, arms crossed. Others shouted in anger, their voices echoing against stone walls that had once represented stability. Inside, veteran politicians spoke gravely of precedent and consequence. Younger MPs, less guarded, described betrayal, of process, of principle, of the electorate. Party loyalty weakened visibly as members distanced themselves from decisions made in haste and fear. Public statements grew carefully ambiguous, signaling fractures that could no longer be concealed. International partners issued restrained remarks, urging calm while privately reassessing commitments. The language was diplomatic, but the message was unmistakable. Trust was under review. Within the ruling structure, discipline eroded rapidly. Blame circulated without restraint, landing on advisors, committees, and leadership alike. Rumors of resignations surfaced, first as whispers, then as speculative headlines. Each denial only fueled further doubt. The moral authority of the system, once enforced by collective restraint, appeared compromised, replaced by individual survival instincts. The question dominating internal discussions shifted decisively. It was no longer about who triggered the chaos. It was about who would remain standing when the reckoning arrived. When Parliament reconvened, the atmosphere had changed irrevocably. Security presence increased at every entrance. Conversations were muted. Speeches, once confident, were restrained and deliberate. Yet beneath the surface calm, tension lingered in every pause and sidelong glance. Investigations were announced with formal language, but public skepticism was immediate and widespread. Ramaphosa's position underwent reassessment in real time. Analysts dissected his responses, both domestic and international, measuring strength against silence. McKenzie's role became a focal point of recalibration. Was he a disruptor, a messenger, or something more strategic? Party strategists recalculated alliances, aware that the balance of power had shifted in ways not yet fully visible. What had once circulated as whispers now filled panel discussions and editorials. The vulnerabilities of the system stood exposed, mapped by leaked files and public confrontation. Efforts to restore normalcy felt procedural rather than persuasive. The damage was no longer confined to one session or one clash. As the immediate noise faded, consequences began to settle into place, slow, deliberate, unavoidable. Investigations promised answers, but also risked deeper exposure. The events that erupted in Parliament had opened a door that could not be closed. And as the chamber lights dimmed once more, one unresolved truth hovered over the institution: this confrontation was not an ending. It was the opening chapter of a reckoning still unfolding.